The coffee shop was nearly empty when Emma realized she'd spent her 28th birthday completely alone, and the weight of that realization made her eyes sting with tears she refused to let fall. She sat in the corner booth of the small downtown café, her laptop open in front of her, a half-eaten muffin beside her cold coffee. The rain pelted against the windows, creating a dreary backdrop that matched her mood perfectly. She'd been sitting there for 3 hours, pretending to work on her freelance graphic design projects, but really just avoiding going home to her empty apartment. Her phone sat face up on the table, the screen dark. No notifications, no messages, no calls. Her mother had forgotten. Her sister had forgotten. Her 2 closest friends from college had forgotten. Even her co-workers at the small marketing firm where she freelanced part-time hadn't mentioned it. Not a single person had remembered that today, March 28th, was supposed to be her special day. Emma knew she shouldn't care so much. She was an adult, after all. Birthdays were for children. But there was something particularly crushing about being completely overlooked by every single person in your life. It made her feel invisible, like she could disappear, and nobody would even notice. The cafe door chimed, and a man walked in, shaking rain from his dark hair. Emma barely glanced up. She was used to being background noise in other people's lives. The man ordered something at the counter, his voice a low rumble she couldn't quite make out, then surprised her by walking directly to her section of the cafe. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked, gesturing to the booth across from hers. Everywhere else seems to have weird sticky spots. Emma looked around the cafe. There were at least 6 other empty tables, but she was too tired to question it. "Sure, go ahead." He was tall, she noticed, with broad shoulders that filled out his expensive-looking rain jacket. His dark hair was slightly too long, curling at the collar, and his eyes were an unusual shade of gray-green. He looked like he was in his early 30s, with the kind of confident posture that suggested he was used to being in charge. "Thanks." He settled into the booth with his black coffee, pulling out his phone but not looking at it. Instead, he glanced at her. "You okay?" The question startled her. "What?" "You just look like you're having a rough day." His expression was genuine, concerned in a way that made her defenses crumble. Maybe it was because he was a stranger. Maybe it was because she'd been holding everything in for so long. Maybe it was because she desperately needed someone, anyone, to acknowledge her existence. Whatever the reason, Emma felt the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "It's my birthday," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "And nobody remembered. Not my mom, not my sister, not my friends. Nobody. I know it sounds pathetic, but I've been sitting here for hours just hoping someone would text or call or something, and nothing. Radio silence. Like I don't even exist." The man's expression shifted, something flickering in his eyes that Emma couldn't quite identify. He set down his coffee and leaned forward slightly. "That's not pathetic. That's lonely. And I'm sorry people forgot something important." "You don't have to be nice about it," Emma said, wiping at her eyes quickly. "I'm just having a pity party. Ignore me." "I don't want to ignore you," he paused. "Happy birthday, Emma," she blinked. "How did you know my name?" He pointed at her laptop, where her email was open, her name clearly visible at the top of the screen. Good guess based on context clues. Despite everything, Emma felt a small smile tug at her lips. "Thanks. I'm sorry for dumping that on you. You're just trying to have your coffee in peace." "Don't apologize. I asked if you were okay." He extended his hand across the gap between their booths. "I'm James." She shook his hand, noting the firm grip, the calluses that suggested he worked with his hands despite his expensive clothes. Emma Hayes, professional birthday forgetter magnet apparently. Well, Emma Hayes, since nobody else is celebrating with you, would you let a stranger buy you a birthday coffee? Or something stronger if you prefer. Emma hesitated. She didn't know this man. He could be anyone. But something about his straightforward manner, his kind eyes, made her feel safe. And honestly, what did she have to lose? She was already at rock bottom. Coffee sounds good, she said, but something hot this time. This one's gone cold. James smiled, and Emma noticed it transformed his entire face, softening the hard edges and making him look younger. What do you like? Vanilla latte, extra shot. He returned a few minutes later with her drink and a chocolate croissant. The barista said it's the best thing they make. You didn't have to do that. It's your birthday. Everyone deserves something sweet on their birthday. They talked for the next 2 hours. Emma learned that James was in town for business, though he didn't specify what kind. He was from Boston originally, but traveled constantly. He'd lost his father when he was young and was raised by his mother and grandfather. He loved old movies and terrible puns, and had a scar on his left hand from a fishing accident when he was 12. Emma found herself laughing more than she had in months. James had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard, and he listened when she talked, really listened, asking follow-up questions and seeming genuinely interested in her graphic design work. Her dreams of opening her own studio someday, her complicated relationship with her family. Why do you think they forgot? James asked gently. Emma sighed. I don't know. My mom's always been scattered. My sister has 3 kids and barely has time to breathe. My friends are busy with their own lives. I'm just not a priority to anyone, I guess. That's their loss. You don't even know me. I know you're talented enough to freelance successfully in a competitive field. I know you're thoughtful because you've asked me just as many questions as I've asked you. I know you're kind because you let a random stranger sit near you and didn't tell him to get lost when he started prying into your personal life. That's enough to know you deserve better than being forgotten. Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. You're very smooth, James, whoever you are. James Chen, and I'm not being smooth. I'm being honest. The cafe owner started putting chairs on tables, a not-so-subtle hint they were closing. Emma glanced at her phone and was shocked to see it was nearly 9 o'clock. She'd spent almost 6 hours in this cafe, the last 2 talking to a complete stranger who'd somehow made her birthday feel less awful. I should go, she said, starting to pack up her laptop. Can I walk you out? James asked. Make sure you get to your car safely. I took the bus. I live about 4 blocks from here. Then let me walk you home. It's dark and still raining. Emma knew she should say no. Stranger danger and all that. But something told her James was trustworthy. Call it instinct or desperation or birthday magic, but she nodded. Okay. They walked through the rain-slicked streets, sharing his umbrella, their shoulders occasionally bumping. Emma pointed out her favorite bookstore, the Thai restaurant where she got takeout every Friday, the park where she sometimes sketched on weekends. James told her about his love of architecture, pointing out details on buildings she'd walked past 1,000 times without noticing. Too soon, they were standing in front of her apartment building, a modest brick structure with a cranky landlord and thin walls. This is me, Emma said. James looked like he wanted to say something, then thought better of it. I'm glad I met you today, Emma. Happy birthday. Thank you for making it less terrible. It was my pleasure. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card, pressing it into her hand. If you ever need anything, or just want to talk, Emma looked at the card in the dim light from the street lamp. It was simple, expensive-feeling cardstock with just a name and phone number. James Chen. No company, no title, no email. "Are you secretly a spy or something?" she teased. "This is very mysterious." Something like that. His smile was enigmatic. "Good night, Emma." She watched him walk away, disappearing into the rainy night, and felt a strange sense of loss. She'd probably never see him again. Ships passing in the night. Two lonely people who'd shared a few hours of connection before returning to their separate lives. Inside her apartment, Emma's phone finally buzzed with a text from her sister. "Oh my God, I just realized what day it is. I'm so sorry. Happy birthday. Love you. Too little, too late." But Emma found she didn't care as much anymore. She looked at James's card, running her thumb over the embossed letters, and wondered what kind of business he was in that he could afford such fancy cards, but didn't put a company name on them. The next morning, Emma woke to a knock at her door. She shuffled over in her pajamas, expecting a package or maybe her neighbor asking to borrow sugar again. Instead, she found a delivery man holding an enormous bouquet of flowers. Roses, lilies, tulips, arranged in a crystal vase that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Emma Hayes?" the man asked. "That's me. Sign here, please." In a daze, Emma signed for the flowers and carried them inside. The card attached read, "For the birthday girl who deserved to be remembered. Thank you for the best conversation I've had in years. James." Emma's hands shook slightly as she set the vase on her kitchen counter. How had he found her address? She'd mentioned the street but not the building number. Then again, how many Emma Hayes could there be within 4 blocks of that café? She should probably be concerned about the mild stalking implications, but instead she felt touched, remembered, seen. On impulse, Emma pulled out the business card and sent a text to the number. "The flowers are beautiful. You didn't have to do that." The response came almost immediately. "I wanted to. How are you feeling today?" "Better. My sister finally remembered around midnight. Apologized profusely." "Good. You deserve apologies and flowers and much more." They texted throughout the day, light conversation at first, then deeper. Emma learned that James was in town for another week, overseeing some kind of project. He asked about her work, and she found herself telling him about a logo design she was struggling with for a new client. "Send me what you have," he wrote. "Fresh eyes might help." Emma sent over 3 concepts she'd been wrestling with. 20 minutes later, James called. "Hi," she answered, surprised by how nervous she felt hearing his voice again. "Hi. So I was looking at your designs and they're all technically perfect. Beautiful work. But I think you're overthinking it. Story of my life. What if you simplified? The client is a yoga studio, right? All 3 of your designs are complex, lots of elements. What if you stripped it back to the absolute essence? One strong image, clean lines." Emma grabbed her sketchpad, already seeing what he meant. Like a simple lotus or a meditation pose in negative space. "Exactly. You've got the skills. You're just in your own head." They talked for an hour about design, about art, about creativity. James had a surprisingly sophisticated understanding of visual composition for someone who'd never mentioned being in a creative field. When Emma asked about it, he deflected smoothly. "I appreciate good design. Part of my job." "Which is complicated and boring. Tell me more about why you want to open your own studio." Emma let him change the subject, too excited about her breakthrough on the logo design to push. After they hung up, she worked for 3 straight hours and created something she was genuinely proud of. She sent it to James first, before even submitting it to the client. "Perfect," he wrote back. "You're incredibly talented, Emma." The compliment warmed her more than it should have. Over the next week, they fell into a pattern. James would text her good morning. They'd exchange messages throughout the day. And most evenings they'd talk on the phone for hours. Emma learned that he was an early riser who went running every morning, that he hated seafood but loved spicy food, that he'd been to 43 countries and counting. James learned that Emma was afraid of birds, that she'd wanted to be an artist since she was 6, that her favorite movie was an obscure French film about a woman who opened a chocolate shop. What Emma didn't learn was what James actually did for a living, where exactly he was staying, or why someone who could afford to send crystal vases full of expensive flowers was in her mid-sized city for business. On Friday, 6 days after they'd met, James asked if she wanted to have dinner with him. "Like a date?" Emma asked, her heart racing. "Like whatever you want it to be." "I leave Sunday, and I'd really like to see you again before I go." Emma agreed before she could overthink it. They decided to meet at an Italian restaurant downtown, somewhere nice but not too formal. Emma spent an embarrassing amount of time picking out her outfit, finally settling on a dark green dress that brought out her eyes and made her feel confident. James was already waiting when she arrived, standing outside the restaurant in dark slacks and a white button-down shirt that showed off his athletic build. He smiled when he saw her, and Emma felt butterflies in her stomach like a teenager. "You look beautiful," he said. "You clean up pretty well yourself." Dinner was perfect. They shared bruschetta and discussed their favorite books. They debated the merits of various pizza toppings while eating pasta that melted in Emma's mouth. James ordered wine without looking at the prices, and Emma noticed the waiter treated him with particular deference, but she pushed away the questions forming in her mind. She was having too good a time to ruin it with interrogation. "I have a confession," James said over tiramisu. "I looked you up online. Your design portfolio is incredible, Emma. You could be working for major firms, making serious money. Why are you freelancing part-time and barely scraping by?" Emma felt defensive for a moment, then realized his tone wasn't judgmental. He was genuinely curious. "Fear, I guess," she admitted. "I applied to some big firms right out of college and got rejected. It hurt. So I took the safe route, small local clients, nothing too risky. I keep telling myself I'll make the leap someday, but someday never comes." "What if someday was now?" "What do you mean?" James leaned back in his chair, studying her with those intense gray-green eyes. "I mean, what if you stopped playing it safe? What if you went after what you really wanted?" "Easy for you to say. You're obviously successful at whatever mysterious business you do." "It wasn't always easy. I took huge risks. Some paid off, some didn't. But I'd rather fail trying than succeed at something that doesn't matter to me." Very philosophical for a Friday night. "I'm serious, Emma. You're too talented to be hiding. The world deserves to see your work." Emma felt tears prickling her eyes again, but this time they weren't from sadness. Nobody had ever believed in her like this. Nobody had ever pushed her to be more than she was settling for. "Why do you care?" she whispered. James reached across the table and took her hand. His palm was warm, solid, real. "Because in the week I've known you, you've reminded me why I do what I do. You're passionate and creative and kind, and talking to you has been the highlight of my days. I care because I see something special in you, and I think you should see it too." Emma squeezed his hand, unable to form words around the emotion clogging her throat. After dinner, James walked her home again. This time, when they reached her building, he didn't immediately say goodbye. "I don't want to leave on Sunday," he said quietly. "Then don't." "I have to. I have obligations, people depending on me. But I want to see you again, Emma. I want to keep talking to you, getting to know you. Is that something you'd want?" "Yes." The word came out more forcefully than she'd intended. "Yes, I'd want that." James smiled, then slowly, giving her time to pull away, he leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle and sweet and perfect, and Emma felt like fireworks were going off in her chest. When they finally broke apart, she was breathless. "I'll call you tomorrow," James promised. He kept his word. Saturday, they talked for 3 hours. Sunday morning, he texted her from the airport. "Thank you for an unforgettable week. I'll be in touch soon." Emma tried not to read too much into soon. She knew how these things went. He'd get busy with his life, she'd get busy with hers, and eventually the texts would taper off. It was nice while it lasted, but she wasn't going to get her hopes up. Except James didn't disappear. He texted her every single day. He called 3 times a week. He sent her articles he thought she'd find interesting, funny memes, pictures from his travels. When Emma mentioned she was struggling with a difficult client, James talked her through it. When she celebrated landing a new contract, he sent champagne to her apartment. 2 months after they'd met, Emma's phone rang at midnight. She answered groggily, worried something was wrong. "Happy birthday," James said. Emma sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. "You remembered." "Of course I remembered. May 28th, right?" "Wait, no. My birthday was March 28th. That's when we met." "I know, but I also know your half-birthday is today, 6 months from your real birthday. So happy half-birthday." Emma started laughing. "That's ridiculous. Nobody celebrates half-birthdays. We do now. It's our thing. Did you get my gift?" "What gift?" "Check your door." Emma padded to her apartment door and opened it carefully. Sitting on her doormat was a small wrapped box. She brought it inside and opened it while James waited on the phone. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a tiny charm in the shape of a coffee cup. "James, this is too much. It's a reminder of where we met, and before you argue, it's not expensive. I had it custom-made by a local artist, supporting small businesses and all that." Emma clasped the bracelet around her wrist, touched beyond words. "Thank you. This is the sweetest thing anyone's ever done for me." "You deserve sweet things, Emma, all the time." They talked until 2 in the morning. The next day, exhausted but happy, Emma made a decision. She was going to stop playing it safe. She updated her portfolio website, raised her rates, and started applying to design positions at major firms. If James could believe in her, maybe it was time she believed in herself. 3 weeks later, she got an interview at a prestigious design agency in Boston. Boston, where James lived. Emma told herself that wasn't a factor in her excitement, but she knew she was lying. The interview went well. They offered her the job on the spot, a senior designer position with a salary that made her dizzy. There was just one problem. She'd have to move to Boston in 3 weeks. Emma called James that night, nervous. They'd been talking for 3 months, but they hadn't seen each other since that week in March. What if the connection wasn't the same in person? What if she was making a huge mistake? "I got a job offer," she told him, "in Boston." There was a pause. Then James said very carefully, "Are you going to take it?" "I don't know. It's a great opportunity. The money's amazing, but it's a big change and I don't know anyone there and I'm scared." "You know me." Emma's heart skipped. "That's true." "Emma, I'm going to be selfish for a minute. I want you to take this job. Not because of me, but because you deserve it and you've earned it. But also because of me, because I've been going crazy only talking to you on the phone. I want to take you to dinner and walk you home and kiss you goodnight. I want to show you my favorite places and introduce you to my friends and see where this thing between us could go. You really want that? I've wanted it since the day I met you." Emma took a deep breath. "Okay, I'm doing it. I'm taking the job." James let out a whoop of joy that made her laugh. "When do you start?" 4 weeks. I have to give notice at my current freelance gigs and pack up my apartment. I'll help. I can come down next weekend if you want. You do that. Emma, I'd do anything for you. Haven't you figured that out yet? James arrived on Friday night, and Emma's nerves evaporated the moment she saw him. He looked exactly as she remembered, tall and broad-shouldered and handsome, with that slightly too long hair and those intense eyes. He dropped his bag and pulled her into a hug that felt like coming home. "I missed you," he murmured into her hair. "I missed you too." They spent the weekend packing boxes and eating takeout and talking about everything and nothing. James was surprisingly handy, taking apart furniture and organizing Emma's books by color, because he knew it would make her happy. He met her neighbor and charmed her cranky landlord into waiving the early termination fee on her lease. He made her laugh until her sides hurt and held her when she cried about leaving the only city she'd ever lived in. On Sunday night, they sat on her couch surrounded by half-packed boxes, and James took her hand. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. "I should have told you months ago, but I was worried it would change things between us, and I liked that you didn't know." Emma felt a spike of anxiety. "Are you married? Secretly a criminal? Dying of some rare disease?" "What? No, nothing like that." James ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely nervous for the first time since she'd met him. "I'm not just a businessman, Emma. I own a company, a pretty big company, Chen Industries. We do commercial real estate development, property management, construction. I'm the CEO." Emma blinked. Chen Industries. She'd heard of them. Everyone had. They'd developed half the major buildings in Boston and were expanding across the country. They were worth billions. "You're a billionaire?" she asked faintly. "Technically, yes. On paper. Most of it's tied up in assets and investments, but yes, I'm very wealthy." James was watching her face carefully. "I know I should have told you sooner. I just wanted you to know me as James, not as my bank account. Does it change things?" Emma's mind was reeling. The expensive flowers, the way he never looked at prices, the business card with no company name because he didn't need to advertise. It all made sense now. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I need to think." James nodded, looking pained but understanding. "Take all the time you need, I'll give you space." He left, and Emma spent the rest of the night spiraling. Was their entire relationship based on a lie? Had he been playing with her, some rich guy slumming it with a struggling artist? But no, that didn't track with the man she'd gotten to know over the past 3 months. James was genuine, kind, supportive. He'd never made her feel less than or judged her for her modest lifestyle. But he'd also hidden something huge from her. What else might he be hiding? Emma barely slept. In the morning, she called the one person who'd always given her straight advice, her sister. "So you're telling me the guy you've been dating long distance is a billionaire CEO and you're mad about it?" her sister said incredulously. "Emma, what is wrong with you?" "He lied to me." "He omitted information." "There's a difference. Did he ever specifically say he wasn't rich?" Emma thought back. "No, but he let me assume he was just a normal businessman." "Okay, but put yourself in his shoes. He's probably had tons of people use him for his money. He meets you, and you don't know who he is and you like him for him. Can you really blame him for wanting to hold on to that? I guess not, Emma admitted. You said he's been nothing but supportive of your career, right? He's not trying to swoop in and save you or control you. No, he's been encouraging me to take risks and bet on myself. Then what's the actual problem? Because from where I'm sitting, you've got a hot, rich guy who's crazy about you and wants to help you succeed. That's like winning the lottery. Emma laughed despite herself. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just never listened. Call him back, Emma. Don't let fear ruin something good. Emma hung up and stared at her phone for a long moment. Then she called James. He answered on the first ring. Emma, can you come over? We should talk. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He made it in 15. Emma opened the door and they stood there looking at each other for a moment before she spoke. I'm sorry I freaked out. I just felt blindsided. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I should have. Why didn't you? James stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Because the night we met, you were so real. You'd been forgotten by everyone in your life and you were hurt but not bitter. You talked to me like I was just a person, not a potential meal ticket or a networking opportunity. And when we kept talking, you challenged me and made me laugh and saw me, really saw me. I haven't had that in years, Emma. Everyone wants something from me, except you. You just wanted me. Emma felt her eyes sting with tears. I still just want you, James. The money is overwhelming and kind of scary, but it doesn't change how I feel about you. How do you feel about me? I think I'm falling in love with you, she whispered. Actually, I think I've been falling since the night you bought me birthday coffee. James closed the distance between them and cupped her face in his hands. I'm already there. I'm completely in love with you, Emma. I have been for months. He kissed her, and Emma felt all her fears and doubts melt away. This was right. He was right. They were right together. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of packing and planning and stolen moments with James. He flew back to Boston for work, but returned every weekend to help Emma prepare for the move. He found her an apartment in a nice neighborhood, close to her new office but not too close to his penthouse. I don't want to pressure you, he explained. We should take this at whatever pace feels comfortable. Emma appreciated that, even as part of her wanted to just move in with him and skip all the steps. But her sister's voice in her head reminded her to be smart, to maintain some independence, to not lose herself in the whirlwind of James Chen. Her last day in her hometown was bittersweet. Her mother finally made time to take her to lunch, apologizing again for forgetting her birthday. Emma forgave her, realizing that her mother's forgetfulness had led to the best thing that ever happened to her. Her friends threw her a going-away party, and Emma said goodbye to the city she'd lived in her entire life. James drove the moving truck to Boston, insisting Emma ride with him instead of driving separately. They made a road trip out of it, stopping at roadside diners and quirky tourist traps, talking and laughing and falling deeper in love with every mile. Boston was overwhelming at first. The city was bigger, faster, louder than what Emma was used to. Her new apartment was beautiful but felt empty. Her new job was exciting but intimidating. She missed her sister and her favorite Thai restaurant and knowing where everything was. But James was there, patient and supportive, helping her navigate her new life. He took her to the best restaurants and the hidden gems only locals knew about. He introduced her to his friends, a diverse group of entrepreneurs and artists and normal people who treated Emma like she'd always been part of their circle. He gave her space when she needed it and companionship when she didn't. 3 months into her new job, Emma's boss called her into his office. She went nervously, worried she'd messed up somehow. Instead, he told her that a major client had specifically requested her for a high-profile project, rebranding Chen Industries. Emma's stomach dropped. "I can't do that." "There's a conflict of interest." Her boss looked confused. "What conflict?" "I'm dating James Chen." "You're what?" Her boss's eyes widened. "Emma, why didn't you say something?" "Because I wanted to be hired on my merit, not because of who I'm dating." Her boss sat back in his chair, studying her. "You were hired on your merit. Your portfolio was the strongest we'd seen in years. But this creates a complicated situation. Let me talk to the partners and figure out how to handle this." Emma left feeling sick. She called James immediately. "They want me to rebrand your company," she said without preamble. "I know, I suggested you." Emma felt a flash of anger. "You what?" "James, I told you I didn't want special treatment." "It's not special treatment. I've seen your work, Emma. You're the best person for the job. I showed your portfolio to my team without telling them we were dating, and they agreed unanimously. Then I disclosed our relationship and said the final decision was theirs. They still wanted you. You should have asked me first." "You're right. I should have. I'm sorry. But Emma, you can't keep hiding your talent because you're afraid people will think you don't deserve your success. You do deserve it. You've earned it." Emma took a deep breath, forcing herself to be rational. "This is a huge opportunity." "It is, but if you're not comfortable with it, I'll understand. We can find someone else." "No." Emma surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. "No, I want to do it. I can do it. I'll make sure there are proper boundaries and oversight, but I want this project." "That's my girl," James said, and she could hear the pride in his voice. The rebrand project was the most challenging and rewarding work Emma had ever done. She worked with James's team to understand the company's vision and values, then created a visual identity that was modern and sophisticated while honoring the company's legacy. It was a delicate balance, and there were moments when she wanted to quit, when she felt like she was in over her head. But James believed in her. Her colleagues believed in her. And slowly, she started to believe in herself. The night before the big presentation to Chen Industries' board of directors, Emma couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, running through her pitch for the 100th time, second-guessing every decision. Her phone buzzed with a text from James. "Stop overthinking. You're brilliant and your work is brilliant. They're going to love it." "How did you know I was awake?" she typed back. "Because I know you want me to come over." "Yes, please." 20 minutes later, James was at her door with herbal tea and warm chocolate chip cookies from the all-night bakery down the street. They curled up on her couch, and he held her while she talked through her fears. "What if they hate it? What if I've completely misunderstood what the company needs? What if they only say yes because you're the CEO and I'm your girlfriend? What if they love it because it's exactly what the company needs and you're incredibly talented?" James countered. "Emma, I've seen the final presentation. It's exceptional. Stop doubting yourself. Easy for you to say, you've always been confident. That's not true. When I took over the company from my grandfather, I was terrified. I was 25 years old and people were betting on me to fail. I had panic attacks before board meetings. I second-guessed every decision. The confidence came from doing the work, making mistakes, learning, and trying again." Emma looked up at him. "Really? You were scared?" "Terrified. Still am sometimes. Running a billion-dollar company means thousands of people depend on the decisions I make. That's a heavy weight. But I do it anyway because the alternative is letting fear win, and I refuse to do that. You need to refuse too." The presentation the next day went better than Emma could have dreamed. The board loved the rebrand. They asked thoughtful questions, praised her attention to detail, and approved the entire proposal unanimously. Emma walked out of that conference room feeling 10 feet tall. James was waiting outside, technically inappropriate given that he should have been in the meeting, but he'd recused himself to avoid any appearance of bias. When he saw her face, he grinned. "They loved it, didn't they?" "They loved it," Emma confirmed, then launched herself into his arms. He caught her, spinning her around, not caring that they were in the middle of his office building where any employee could see. "I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad I got to be part of your journey." That night, James took Emma to the fanciest restaurant in Boston, the kind of place with a 6-month waiting list and a sommelier who probably earned more than Emma's old salary. She wore a new dress she'd bought specifically for celebrating big moments, and James wore a suit that made him look like he belonged on the cover of a magazine. Over champagne and oysters, James took her hand. "I have something for you. James, you're always giving me things. You don't have to. I want to." He pulled a small box from his jacket pocket, and Emma's heart started racing. But when he opened it, instead of a ring, there was a key. "What's this?" she asked. "A key to my place." "I know we've been taking things slow, and I respect that. But I want you to know you're always welcome in my space, my life. No pressure to use it, just an invitation." Emma picked up the key, feeling the weight of what it represented. "I want to use it. I want to be part of your life, your space. I want to wake up next to you and fight over counter space in the bathroom and learn all your annoying habits." James laughed. "I have a lot of annoying habits." "Good, so do I. We can be annoying together." "Is that a yes? You'll move in with me?" "Eventually. Let me finish out my lease, make sure this is real and not just new relationship energy. But yes, James. I want to build a life with you." He kissed her right there in the middle of the restaurant, and Emma didn't care who saw. The next few months were a beautiful blur. Emma's rebrand for Chen Industries launched to widespread acclaim, generating press coverage and award nominations. She got promoted at work and started getting approached by other high-profile clients. James's company opened 3 new developments, and he was featured on the cover of Forbes magazine. They were both busy, both driven, both chasing their dreams, but they always made time for each other. Date nights and lazy Sundays, stolen lunch hours and midnight phone calls when one of them was traveling. Emma met James's mother, a formidable woman who ran a chain of restaurants and made it clear that if James messed this up, she'd side with Emma. James charmed Emma's family, winning over her sister's kids with magic tricks and patient answers to their endless questions. On March 28th, 1 year after they'd met, Emma woke up to her phone buzzing, multiple texts from friends and family wishing her happy birthday, her calendar full of notifications. Her social media flooded with messages, but the first text was from James. "Happy birthday to the woman who changed my life. Look outside your window." Emma went to the window of her apartment and looked down at the street. There was James, holding an enormous sign that read, "Happy Birthday, Emma," in letters big enough to read from the 4th floor. A small crowd had gathered, laughing and taking pictures. Emma laughed too, grabbed her coat, and ran downstairs. "You're insane," she said, throwing her arms around him. "I wanted to make sure you were remembered this year," James said. "No more forgotten birthdays, not on my watch. You know everyone else remembered too, right?" "My phone's been blowing up since midnight." "Good, as it should be, but I wanted to be first." He set down the sign and pulled her close. "I love you, Emma Hayes." Thank you for having coffee with a stranger a year ago. Thank you for taking a chance on me. Thank you for being you." "I love you too," Emma whispered. "Thank you for remembering my birthday." "Every year," James promised. "I'll remember every year for the rest of our lives." Emma didn't know it then, but he meant it. When March rolled around the following year, James proposed on her birthday with a ring he'd had custom designed, incorporating elements from her favorite design project. She said yes before he even finished asking. They got married in a small ceremony that fall, surrounded by family and friends, in the same café where they'd first met. The owner had been thrilled to host, and they'd transformed the humble coffee shop into something magical with Emma's design eye and James's resources. Emma wore a simple white dress and carried coffee-colored roses. James teared up when he saw her walking down the aisle. They wrote their own vows, and Emma's included a promise to never let him forget his own birthday, which made everyone laugh because James was notorious for working through his birthday like it was any other day. 3 years after they met, on Emma's 31st birthday, Emma gave James a gift, a positive pregnancy test wrapped in a bow. "Are you serious?" James asked, his hands shaking as he held the little plastic stick. "Very serious. We're having a baby, due in November." James picked her up and spun her around, laughing and crying at the same time. "Best birthday present ever. Hey, it's my birthday, not yours. It's a present for both of us." Their daughter was born on November 15th, a perfect little girl with James's eyes and Emma's smile. They named her Lily, and she became the center of their universe. Emma took maternity leave and discovered a newfound passion for children's book illustration. James rearranged his schedule to be home for dinner every night, determined to be present in a way his own father hadn't been able to be. On Emma's 32nd birthday, 6 months after Lily was born, James woke Emma up early. "Come on," he said, bouncing Lily gently in his arms. "We have a surprise for you." "James, I told you no big gifts this year. The baby's expensive enough." "This isn't a gift, it's a dream." He drove them across the city to a neighborhood Emma loved, full of old brick buildings and tree-lined streets. He pulled up in front of a beautiful storefront with large windows and exposed brick walls. The sign above the door was covered with a cloth. "What is this?" Emma asked. "Your studio." James handed Lily to Emma and pulled the cloth away from the sign. It read, "Hayes Design Studio," in elegant letters Emma recognized as her own work. "James, we can't afford this." "We can. You can." "Emma, your client list has tripled in the past year. You're turning down projects because you don't have the space or the team to take them on. This is your chance to build something bigger, to stop limiting yourself. I've already hired a studio manager and 2 junior designers based on your notes about what you'd need. They start next month." Emma stared at the studio, at the sign with her name on it, at her husband holding their daughter and grinning like he'd just given her the world, because he had. "Every year," she said softly. "You really do remember every year. I promised, didn't I? Every birthday, I'm going to remind you that you deserve to be celebrated, to be seen, to chase your biggest dreams." Emma kissed him, soft and sweet, with Lily gurgling happily between them. "Thank you for everything, for that coffee a million years ago, for believing in me, for loving me." "Easiest thing I've ever done," James said. 5 years later, on Emma's 37th birthday, they sat in the café where they'd met. It had become a tradition, coming here every year on her birthday, having coffee in the same corner booth. Lily, now almost 5, colored quietly beside them while they talked. "Do you ever think about that night," Emma asked, When I was sitting here alone feeling sorry for myself. All the time, James said. I think about how I almost didn't come in. It was raining and I was tired and I had a perfectly good hotel room, but something made me walk through that door. Fate. I don't know if I believe in fate. But I believe in right place, right time. I believe in taking chances. I believe in you. Emma reached across the table and took his hand, her wedding ring catching the light. Best birthday of my life, that one, even though nobody remembered. I remembered, Lily piped up, not looking up from her coloring. Daddy always remembers Mommy's birthday. He has a big calendar with a heart on March 28th. Emma and James laughed. That's right, baby, Emma said. Daddy never forgets. Because you're the most important person in the world, James said, looking at Emma with the same intensity he'd had that first night. You and this little one. My whole world. They stayed in the cafe until closing, just like that first night. But this time, when they left, Emma wasn't alone. She had a husband who loved her, a daughter who adored her, a thriving business, and a life beyond anything she could have imagined when she'd sat in that booth crying over forgotten birthday wishes. As they walked to the car, Lily between them holding both their hands, Emma sent up a silent thank you to the universe for unanswered texts and forgotten birthdays and rainy nights that led to coffee shop conversations with handsome strangers. Because sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in the worst days. Sometimes being forgotten leads to being found. And sometimes a single act of kindness from a stranger can change the entire trajectory of your life. James had remembered her birthday every single year, just like he'd promised. But more than that, he'd remembered her. He'd seen her when she felt invisible, believed in her when she doubted herself, and loved her when she didn't think she was worth loving. And every March 28th, when Emma woke up to flowers and cards and her family singing happy birthday, she thought back to that lonely night in the cafe and smiled. Because that forgotten birthday had led to every wonderful thing that came after. 10 years after they met, Emma's 40th birthday was a grand affair. James had tried to throw her a surprise party, but Emma had figured it out weeks in advance and pretended to be shocked anyway, because she loved him too much to ruin his fun. Their home was full of people. Emma's mother and sister and their families, James's mother and her restaurant staff who'd become like family, Emma's team from Hayes Design Studio, James's closest friends and colleagues, and running through it all, their 3 children. Lily was 9 now, joined by twin boys, Max and Oliver, who just turned 4 and were currently using the fancy living room as a racetrack for their toy cars. This is chaos, Emma said, surveying the scene from the kitchen where she and James had escaped for a brief moment of peace. This is life, James corrected, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. Our life. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Pretty amazing, Emma agreed, leaning back against his chest. I have something for you. James pulled a small envelope from his pocket. Your real present. The party was just the distraction. Inside the envelope were 2 plane tickets to Paris. James, we can't just go to Paris. We have 3 kids and 2 businesses. My mother is dying to have the kids for a week. Your studio manager is more than capable of handling things. And I've been planning this for months. 1 week, just you and me, in the most romantic city in the world. We can visit museums and eat amazing food and remember what it was like before we were outnumbered by tiny humans. Emma looked at the tickets, then at her husband's hopeful face. You really planned this for months. I wanted to do something special for your 40th. You've accomplished so much, Emma. Your studio has won international awards. You've published 2 children's books. You've raised 3 incredible kids while also building an empire. You deserve to be celebrated." Emma felt tears welling up. Even after a decade together, James still found ways to make her feel cherished. "I love you so much." "I love you too. Happy birthday, Emma." The party continued late into the night. Emma's sister gave a speech about how Emma had gone from forgotten to unforgettable. James's mother talked about the first time James had brought Emma home, how she'd known immediately that this girl was different. Emma's oldest client spoke about how Hayes' design studio had transformed his small business into a national brand. But the moment that made Emma cry was when Lily got up in front of everyone, nervous but determined. "My mom is the best person I know," Lily said in her clear 9-year-old voice. "She works really hard, but she always has time to help me with my homework or listen to my problems. She makes our house beautiful, and she makes really good pancakes. But the best thing about my mom is that she makes everyone feel special. All my friends love coming to our house because my mom remembers their names and asks about their hobbies and makes them feel important. My dad says that when he met my mom, nobody remembered her birthday. But now everybody remembers because she's impossible to forget." Emma was openly crying now, and so was half the room. James squeezed her hand, and Emma squeezed back, overwhelmed with gratitude for this life, this family, this love. Later, after the guests had gone home and the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, Emma and James sat on their back porch under the stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Emma asked. "Marrying someone you met so randomly, someone who wasn't from your world?" "Never, not once." James pulled her closer. "You're the best decision I ever made, Emma. You ground me. You challenge me. You make me want to be better. And you gave me this family, this life. How could I possibly regret that? I used to think being forgotten that day was the worst thing that could happen to me. But it was actually the best thing, because it brought you into my life." "I would have found you eventually," James said. "Universe has a way of bringing the right people together." "You really believe that?" "I really do. I think we were always supposed to find each other. Maybe not in that café on that specific night, but somehow, somewhere. You're my person, Emma, my forever." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. From a forgotten birthday to a lifetime of being remembered. From loneliness to a house full of love and laughter and chaos. Emma's phone buzzed with a late-night text from her mother. "Sorry I forgot your birthday all those years ago. Best mistake I ever made since it led you to James. Love you, sweetheart." Emma showed the text to James and they both laughed. "She's not wrong," James said. "I should send her a thank you card. Thanks for being forgetful, it changed my life." "Don't you dare." "Too late, I'm already composing it in my head." Emma shook her head, smiling. This was her life now. Loving and being loved by a man who turned forgotten birthdays into grand celebrations, who saw her potential before she saw it herself, who built her up instead of tearing her down. And every year on March 28th, James made sure Emma knew she was remembered, cherished, celebrated. He sent flowers to her office, planned special dinners, wrote her love letters that made her cry happy tears. He never let her forget that she was important, valued, seen. But more than the grand gestures, it was the small things that showed Emma she was loved. The way James always made her coffee in the morning, exactly how she liked it. The way he listened when she talked about her day, really listened, asking questions and remembering details. The way he looked at her, even after a decade together, like she was the most fascinating person in the world. Their Paris trip, 3 months later, was everything Emma had dreamed. They wandered through museums and ate croissants for breakfast and kissed on bridges over the Seine. They talked about their dreams for the future, about growing Hayes' design studio internationally, about James's plans to start a foundation for young entrepreneurs, about watching their children grow up and maybe, someday, becoming grandparents. On their last night in Paris, James surprised Emma with dinner at a tiny restaurant that served the most incredible French food Emma had ever tasted. Over wine and chocolate soufflé, he took her hand. "I've been thinking about that night we met," he said. "About how you told a complete stranger your deepest hurt, about how vulnerable that was, how brave." "I was just lonely and pathetic," Emma said with a self-deprecating laugh. "No, you were human, you were honest, and it made me want to know you, really know you. I'd spent so much of my life surrounded by people who only showed me their polished surfaces, but you showed me your real self right from the start. That's rare, Emma. That's precious. Where is this coming from? I just want you to know that I see you. I've always seen you, not the successful designer or the amazing mother or any of the roles you play. I see Emma, the woman who's afraid of birds and cries at sad movies and dreams in color and talks in her sleep. I see all of you and I love all of you." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I see you too, James. The real you, not the CEO or the billionaire. The man who makes terrible puns and can't sing to save his life and still tears up when Lily shows him her report cards. That's the man I fell in love with. I'm going to keep remembering your birthday," James said. "Every year for the rest of our lives. It's my promise to you, you'll never be forgotten again." "I know," Emma said softly. "You've never broken a promise to me, not once." They returned home to chaos and joy, to 3 children who'd missed them terribly, and a house that felt more like home than any place Emma had ever lived. Hayes' design studio was thriving, with clients across the country and a team of 15 talented designers. James's foundation launched to great success, helping hundreds of young people start their own businesses. But through it all, through the successes and challenges and beautiful ordinary moments of life, James kept his promise. Every March 28th, Emma woke up to flowers and cards and celebrations. Every year, James found new ways to make her feel special, remembered, loved. On Emma's 45th birthday, their 15th anniversary of meeting in that café, James took her back to where it all began. They sat in the same corner booth, now worn with age but still comfortable, and shared coffee and muffins just like that first night. 15 years, Emma marveled. "It feels like yesterday and also like forever ago." "Best 15 years of my life," James said. "Here's to 50 more. 50 more birthdays where you shower me with flowers and attention." "I'm not sure I can handle that much celebration." "Too bad. You're stuck with me and my grand romantic gestures." Emma laughed, reaching across the table to take his hand. "I love you, James Chen. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for everything." "I love you too, Emma Chen. Thank you for talking to a stranger all those years ago. Thank you for taking a chance. Thank you for building this life with me." As they left the café hand in hand, walking into the spring evening, Emma thought about the woman she'd been 15 years ago. Lonely, forgotten, invisible. And she thought about the woman she was now. Loved, celebrated, seen. It had all started with a birthday nobody remembered. And it had led to a lifetime of being cherished by the man who'd promised to remember every year. James had kept that promise, just like he kept all his promises. And Emma knew with absolute certainty that he'd keep remembering for all the years to come. Because that's what love was. Showing up, paying attention, remembering the details that matter. It was grand gestures and quiet moments, passionate kisses and comfortable silences, building dreams together and supporting each other through the hard times. It was a stranger buying coffee for a sad woman in a café. It was a promise to remember. It was choosing each other every single day for the rest of their lives. And Emma wouldn't change a single moment of it.